It would be funny if they did name Baby Yoda Goku, though. Can you imagine if that had been the reveal? They just started calling him Goku.
That would
Imagine if
definitely
he
be something.
started screaming like Goku. This is the Sirens Den, a fandom podcast where we talk all things movies, TV, and pop culture to our heart's desires.
Today on our show, we are joined by the very awesome cosplayer and just overall giant Star Wars nerd, PersonifyCosplay.
Hey guys! Happy to be here.
I guess let's get right into the news. HBO recently released their Wonder Woman the first scene of Wonder Woman 1984.
I did not know that until just now.
Well, there you go. You learned something new
I think
every
I
day.
saw articles about it, but I refuse to even watch new trailers on it, so I have not seen it.
That's very fair. I mean, I was wondering how they would bring back the mascara, and they have beautifully.
Nice.
So I'll just say that.
Okay, sounds Gucci.
Awesome. I'm excited to hear it.
I mean, I'll just say it looks great. I'm still weary about it saying that it's coming out in theaters. I'm not sure how well it'll do with this format they're choosing to launch it through. I mean, but we'll see.
This is the first
coming
one
out
of
the HBO Max on the same day. So
this is the first movie that Warner Brothers is doing that with, right?
Yeah, they're basically testing it out with this one. So I'm not sure the results it'll yield. Because I mean, most people are gonna watch it on HBO, but I don't believe they charge for it. I mean, you'd have to get the subscription.
But HBO Max was $18 a month.
Right. So it's like that's basically the price of a movie ticket. So, but at the same time, they're not getting more because people aren't going to be paying more to see it through like renting.
My guess is that they're trying to get more people to sub to HBO Max, and that's why they're doing all the movies through next year is getting the double release as well.
But I'm wondering if that'll be enough to make their money back. I mean, if they're promoting their streaming service, is HBO Max the one that produced Wonder Woman? Is that money going to go towards the actual movie, or will it be considered like a box office failure, so to speak?
There were a couple people who did some math on this, and I don't remember the specific numbers because I didn't write them down. I just read the article, right? But I vaguely remember something about how that this is a really big gamble on Warner Brothers' part because in order to make the projected like money back and like a profit that they would need with this move, they need to get like 28 million more subscribers to HBO Max, and right now they were sitting at, or at least at the time of the article, they were sitting around like the 9 million mark. So they have to get like they have to get like 20 million new subscribers in order to make a profit out of this, which we'll see.
Well, so my roommate,
so
I buy Disney Plus and she buys HBO Max because her fandoms are on HBO Max and my fandoms are on Disney Plus. And so we like flip-flop between the two. But she found a really good deal for HBO Max that they've been running recently, which is like subscribing for 6 months out, and it cheapens it quite a bit. So I'm wondering if they're going to continue doing kind of deals like that while they're doing these movie releases to try and get subscribers long term and not just the month that it comes out.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting to see like how they just market HBO Max as a service from with this because there has to be a giant push for that.
Yeah, and this, I think they also see this as like this is the next best option, is releasing movies and getting some money while they're not making the maximum amount of profit, but they're making some money so they can keep moving forward to hopefully what is the future. So I think they kind of see this as this is half of something, and maybe we can make it something, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah, no, it's interesting.
We'll find out next week.
Yeah. For real. So next on our little quick news is Cyberpunk 2077 is being pulled from the Sony PlayStation store because it has been so buggy and just so unplayable that they're having to pull it. And they're offering refunds to anyone who wants it, which is a pretty big move considering how big of a launch and release this game was, and considering how many times they delayed the game to quote unquote try and get it right.
I mean, I haven't
Uh,
played it. I've been excited to. You know, who doesn't want to play and be friends with Keanu Reeves? It's great. But apparently on the PS5, it's not as buggy.
So what I've heard is that the newer consoles are doing fine, but even if it's one gen behind, it just does not work. And like that's for Xbox too. Like Xbox is also issuing refunds as well. They're not pulling it from the store, but they're issuing refunds, which for both platforms is pretty hefty considering they don't usually do that.
yeah.
But like PS5s and the Xbox, the new Xbox, I've been running it okay, but it's still buggy.
Yeah, I've been hearing because also I've been hearing from people who do have the PS5 that it's playing fine for the most part, but they're still finding problems.
Yeah, it's not bug free.
This game, it's been being because also it had its release date for early this year originally, but before that it's been a game in the making for years and years and years. And I think it was originally supposed to release on this generation. It was never, when it was at least conceptualized and for a lot of its development, it wasn't a PS5 game. I think it got selected to be a PS5 launch game. It's really interesting to see that a game that was originally supposed to release on these platforms just being so buggy with it.
I'm gonna just say it's Bethesda and leave it at that.
I think it's also interesting too, because on the flip side of things, a lot of people would get really, really mad at the company every time they released "We're gonna be delaying the game because we want to get it right." Because I remember each time that happened, there was a bit of backlash and there was a bit of controversy. And the kind of counter to that was, well, don't you want the game to be good? Like, don't you want it to not be rushed? And it's really interesting to kind of see this kind of the people who were angry at them for pushing back now be angry about it for how buggy it is. To give a little bit of credit where credit is due to the creator side of things, I wonder how much of a pressure that they felt to not push back any further, especially since the PS5 just released. Was there like any sort of contract in there that prevented them from developing the game past the PS5 release, just because it's supposed to be a launch title? Yeah, it's a lot of speculation to have, and I don't really know a lot about like video game programming, so I'd be really interesting to know about that kind of aspect from it from someone who's a little bit more familiar than me. But it's just really kind of an interesting train wreck to watch from the sidelines right now.
Very much so.
For sure. I mean, I'm not an avid video game player, but it looked like a cool game. And to go off your point, Faith, it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's either they take their time making it as, seamless as possible, or they, give in to the fans' demands and release it, and deal with what they're dealing with now.
Like I've definitely heard criticisms of the game itself and the content that the game has. And so I was definitely more of, I'm going to wait until this game has been out for a little bit and it's cheaper so I don't have to pay that much money for a game that maybe I won't play all the way through.
Well, on the topic of video games and companies who are a little better at their releases, Super Nintendo World is opening up in Universal Studios in Japan, and they posted this video kind of taking you through the park, and it looks amazing.
That is so exciting.
They take you into basically the video game. You enter through a pipe that I found out are called warp pipes.
Mm-hmm.
And you like go through this like little warp, like lights are flashing, and you go through the tunnel and end up in Princess Peach's lobby, and you're just like, wow, I'm here in the video game. It's great. And then you go outside, and they honestly did more than I was expecting, because I heard they were going to like have LED screens to like be super video gamey, which they do have with moving animations, and it's really cool. But they also have like 3D animatronics and like spinning coins on the blocks, and with your little like wristband, you can hit the blocks and like collect coins. It's just like really, really cool.
I think this is the most excited I've been to a or for a theme park. Like I've never, like, I love going to theme parks and I love rides and stuff, but I've never really been like one for they're opening a Tron world at Disney. Like I'm always just kind of like, oh, that's neat, like cool. It'll be a different ride. But this is the first one that I'm like, yes, I can be in the Nintendo world and it is fulfilling all my dreams.
Exactly. And like, speaking of rides, you could be in the actual Mario Kart, like a virtual 3D roller coaster, like interactive ride where you, I guess, face off against Bowser. They have themed restaurants where the menu items are so cute. And you get served by toads.
That's all I ever want.
Yeah, they have an LED screen, and you can see the toads in the kitchen working on preparing your food. And it's just like, this is fabulous.
Okay, but what if there's a part in the ride with the Yoshi Omni movers where there's just like a cliff, and in order to get past the cliff, this is how you get rid of the Yoshi. This is how you send the Yoshi on to the next person. Is that you ditch the Yoshi in the ditch and jump over the cliff.
You will understand these references if you ever play Super Mario Brothers.
I'm sure that I will. I have a friend who's been trying to get me to play, but I don't have a Switch, so it takes a little bit of time to get some things.
I guess we can jump into our main episode topic.
Yes. Mando is amazing.
So to start things off at the beginning of the season, we got introduced to the Marshal. The Marshal, played by Timothy Olyphant, who was someone who found Boba Fett's armor and was wearing it and used it to, help rid the town or help keep the town safe. Din Djarin said that he needed to take the armor and return it to its rightful owner.
I loved this episode. I thought it was an excellent way to start off this season. It was definitely something where I immediately realized that had been a lot of character development with Mando and the child, because their bond had like infinitely grown, and he seemed way more comfortable with the fact that, like, yeah, this is my kid here. Don't touch this. And it was a great way to like get back into the action, but it didn't just like dump a whole lot on us at first, which was really nice. It definitely felt a lot of like what the first season was, which is just the whole bounty hunter shtick. And I personally, this is one of my favorite episodes of the season, because it is very much West feel that I loved so much about the first season. And it's not super Star Wars-y. It's just Mando doing his thing, and he's got a kid towing along.
And I liked how they brought together was it the Jawas or the Sand People?
It was the Sand People, the Tusken Raiders.
Oh yes, the Tusken Raiders. How they kind of work together to help take down the Krayt Dragon.
It was really nice to see them not be consistently villainized all the time.
Yeah.
And to actually see them be like developed a little bit more, and that, hey, they're just people like us, and it was nice.
One of the things that I thought they did really, really well too, with that is, again, because the Tusken Raiders had always kind of been like these like evil, savage, bloodthirsty monsters who live in the desert. And it was really cool to see them be really humanized, but they did so in a way that really kind of brought out this really just good aspect of Mando's character, where he respects them as a people and as as such, they respect him. It's this kind of mutual respect for each other, this understanding that I think the line was the Tuscan Raiders are brutal people, but so are the sands that the sands that they live on, and they've managed to live here for thousands of years. And I think that was just such a really nice way to just really, I don't know, it felt like a celebration of this group that had previously just been used as kind of like a not like a villain to be in the sidelines that no one really cared about.
Yeah, just
And
a
just
general bad guy.
and just to see Mando like humanize them in that way, where literally no one else had ever done that, I think that really just shows just how much empathy that Mando has as a person, which I think is one of his strongest character aspects.
Absolutely. My favorite moment in that episode, or one of my favorite moments, was probably when he was talking with one of the raiders in sign language.
So
No?
yeah, it's actually really cool. Something that they did there is because it was a fictional sign language, and they brought in people
Mhm.
who were as experts, but they weren't deaf. And the people they brought in were like, "Why did you bring us? Like we're like bring in actual deaf people, bring in people who like do communicate with sign language. Like they'll give you a much better expertise than we'll be able to."
Imagine actually talking to the people you're trying to represent and getting their opinion on it.
Hmm.
Huh. What a concept. So I'm glad to see more of that. That was definitely an awesome moment. And I liked another this was like a technical aspect of it, but it was really cool to see the aspect ratio started as like with the letterbox, and it looked very cinematic and very movie like, and then went out of the letterbox and I didn't notice it. It was specifically the moment when the crate dragon, I believe, finally takes the bait and everyone's running, and the aspect ratio just changes to a full screen experience. And it's really awesome.
It's
I
quite
didn't notice
excellent.
that happened. That's awesome.
So many cool little things. So much love.
So we've got, a lot of episodes to get through in season 2. So let's just speed right through. Chapter 10, the passenger, that's the one with the frog lady. He needs to transport her to a planet that is able to hatch her babies. But on the way to said planet, they get targeted by these X-Wing pilots that are just on patrol. But they get stuck because the ship crashes through this like icy cave. And while Mando's trying to get the ship fixed, the frog lady goes off and I guess warms up her eggs in a hot tub. But Baby Yoda, being the hungry little munchkin he is, wasn't able to eat the frog eggs like he had been all episode, and instead went to these like alien-like eggs that were just chilling around the cave that turned out to be spider worms. And then they basically just they escape those worm spiders with the help of those X-Wing pilots that they were running from.
I believe
But
the spiders are called the Kreenka. They were first introduced in Star Wars Rebels.
One of the highlights for me in this episode was the two X-Wing pilots that we got. So one was our man Dave Filoni, who is like really the mastermind behind a lot of the Star Wars television universe. So it was cool to see.
He's the producer on all of the Star Wars TV series that have been released up to this point.
Yeah, he's really good just as a creator and a producer. So it's cool to see him kind of get a nice cameo this way.
I personally really was not a fan of this episode, but I also have a terrible fear of spiders, and it was bad enough seeing the Kreenka in Rebels in like 3D animated, where there's hardly any textures and whatnot, and then seeing them with that furry texture and very life size, I was just like, I hate it here. And I spent the majority of the episode yelling at Baby Yoda because he was being such a naughty boy. Like, come on, dude. First of all, you're eating these poor ladies' eggs. Who's not going to get any more eggs? How dare you? And also, that lady, I think, cannot count because he ate at least half of them. But then he just like is like, oh, what's this on this foreign planet? Another egg? What is this? Let's just shove this leggy exoskeleton into my mouth.
He's a very bad boy.
Like, this was the first episode that I literally was like, dude, I don't like you right now. And like, of course I'm clutching my gazillion Baby Yoda plushes. And I'm just like, how could you do this to me? I was so mad at him. He has redeemed himself later on this season, but I was like, he's definitely a baby in this episode. He's a toddler. There's no getting around that.
I also like that they really established him, like, just so we're clear, Baby Yoda is a hardcore carnivore.
Yeah, I was like, oh, honey, I know they're yummy, but let's not eat the poor lady's eggs.
One other thing I really liked about this episode is Amy Sedaris' character. I love Amy Sedaris as an actress, and I feel like this was the season of the side characters where they all got a lot of love and a lot of like really nice subtle characterization. And when she just volunteered the frog lady with, yeah, I trust her with my life. We just met. I thought you said you trusted her with her life. Yeah, well, I just wanted you to do the thing. I thought that was just such a cool just moment of what she stands for and kind of what her deal is.
Yeah, it was nice. This was definitely my least favorite episode out of all of this season, but that is 100% due to the Krinka being, just existing. They're scary, and I did not need so many shivers of it was gross.
Well, then let's go into the third episode where finally the frog lady is returned and reunited with her husband. But we also get to meet, Faith, if you want to continue on.
Bo-Katan! We got Bo-Katan! Bo-Katan is live action, guys!
It's so pretty.
So this was exciting for multiple reasons. A, Bo-Katan is one of the best characters in the animated show. They brought back the original actress, which was really cool, especially because Katie Sackhoff is such a good actress. This is a fantastic use for her in the Star Wars universe because she already brought so much life to that character. It really made sense that they just gave this to her. And finally, it was exciting because this means so many different things. A, the fact that she's after Moff Gideon with the Darksaber. We know that she was the last person to canonically have the lightsaber or the Darksaber before then, which kind of means that Rebels is it's staying in the canon, which I know there's a little bit of debate whether it would or not. So
which is ridiculous because Rebels is like one of the best things in Star Wars.
It is.
At me all.
Rebels is so good. This will turn into we talk about Rebels if we're not careful. But it was just really exciting to see that they continued kind of that continuity. And also the fact that Bo-Katan is here, that means so many beloved characters from the animated show who a lot of people just stay as like staples of their Star Wars universe have the potential to come into the live action universe. And I think that's really exciting.
This was definitely one of my favorite episodes because of Bo-Katan in general. And so seeing Bo-Katan alive was really nice. Seeing all the other Mandos in her squad still sporting the Night Watch armor colors was really cool too. Even though they're no longer Night Watch. It was still really nice. There's just a whole lot in this episode that made me happy, but literally every time Bo-Katan was on screen, I was crying tears of joy because Bo-Katan.
Yeah. Also, Katie Sackhoff just totally killed it as a performance because this was already a role that was near and dear to her heart. So just to see her just have so much fun with it, it really just brought so much. It really elevated the episode.
She did really well as Bo-Katan because she is Bo-Katan, but also I have to give the costuming and makeup department huge props because it literally looks like she was yanked right from the cartoons. The armor is just more weathered, but the paint job is fantastic. Like I look at the helmet in these scenes and it still feels like it's animated to me. And to seeing like them change her face to look more like the character was really excellent. She's literally ripped from the cartoons, and I can't give enough praise to the costume and makeup department for that.
So as someone who hasn't seen Star Wars Rebels or Clone Wars or any of the animated stuff, she was awesome. And I was just happy to see more Mandalorians. I love a good team up. The episode is called The Heiress, and I was like, what could that possibly mean? But, connecting everything that you were talking about, like with the Darksaber in the end of season 1, I was like, okay, stuff's starting to make sense now. And it's cool to, as someone who doesn't know too much of the previous lore, to kind of just like figure out everything and see how awesome it was.
And I think that speaks to another strength that they did well in the episode. So there's people who have seen the show. This was an exciting character reveal. And then there's people who didn't see any of the animated show, and they still managed to do so in a way that didn't alienate people who aren't like really deep into Star Wars TV.
I would definitely agree with that. My dad, who is a Star Wars fan, but has never seen any of the cartoons, despite my begging, he loved Bo-Katan. In the episode, he was very pleasantly surprised, but he had a lot of questions. But it was something that was he still understood that, like, okay, so the Darksaber is kind of like an ancient weapon. It was one of the first sabers. Bo-Katan used to have it. She wants it back. Honestly, you didn't need much more explaining at that point. And for fans of the series, they like already knew kind of what was happening. And for other people, they were still going on that journey, understanding a little bit more of Mandalorian history. And I think that was really cool. Ahsoka is one of those characters that I think is really important in the Star Wars lore, and a lot of people aren't aware of her. And so to finally hear her name spoken in something live action was really important. Like, we didn't hear her name dropped in episode 3, even though going back, they probably should have figured that out beforehand.
Yeah.
But it was to hear her name even was really powerful to me, and it was very exciting because Ahsoka is one of the most important characters to even the Skywalker saga. Is one of the most important characters, and
Definitely agree. Because I think when it comes to Anakin as a character, Padme might be his heart, but Ahsoka was his spirit.
It was very much true. And there's a lot of times that people will ask me, well, like, how do you think that Anakin became Darth Vader when he's just this whiny kid? But I'm like, no, that's not the Anakin that turned into Darth Vader. It's Clone Wars Anakin that turned into Darth Vader, because we're missing a whole big chunk of his story and his like spiritual demise from Clone Wars that a lot of people haven't seen, and Ahsoka is a huge portion of that. So it wasn't that whiny kid that turned into Darth Vader. It was this tortured soul who felt like he let down his family again. And so hearing her in live action was, I was just like, hell yeah, we're gonna have fun. This is gonna be great. Bo-Katan knows who Ahsoka Tano is still. She hasn't forgotten about the babies. That's great.
So then moving on to the 4th episode.
The Siege, I will say, as an episode, like, that was my least favorite of the season, I think. I mean, it was a fine episode, but I feel like the season could have progressed without it. I feel all the big revelation of that episode is that they're taking Baby Yoda's blood, but it felt like a bunch of, we didn't really need to go through any of this to find that out. I think the really important thing that happened is that Moff Gideon got a tracking beacon on Mando, and the thing about the blood. But I mean, everything else other than that, it was a fine action. It was directed by Carl Weathers, which is cool. Like, and also I say this, like, as far as The Mandalorian goes, it's a fantastic show. Like, even the bad episodes are really good television. But just, I felt it was a little bit lackluster in compared to a lot of else at what we got.
The best part of this has already been removed from it, but it is the t-shirt guy standing in the background.
Oh, yes!
But he's already been digitally removed, which is sad. But t-shirt guy, R.I.P. t-shirt guy. But honestly, I had to go back and watch this episode a second time, because the first time I watched it, I got really bored, I think, overall from it. Like, I was listening to it in the background, but I was way more preoccupied with my phone. And because I didn't feel like there was a whole lot going on. There's a few moments, like with Baby Yoda's blood, I was like, oh yeah, okay. And then it was definitely the first episode of this that I was like, I'm not really invested in this. But it's still really good TV. You can't argue that. Like if this was on ABC or something like that, people would be losing their minds in comparison to a lot of network television.
I will say though, this episode did bring two of my favorite moments. Even though it's my least favorite episode of the season, it did bring two of my favorite moments of the season. The first being where he's trying to direct Yoda into fixing the ship, the cold open, and he's just trying to direct him which wire to put where, and Yoda short circuits the ship. That was so funny.
It was great.
That I think that was my favorite cold open. Uh, and the other moment I thought was really good was Baby Yoda in school. That whole moment where Baby Yoda wants the macaroon. from the kid's like, no, these are my cookies, which the kid had every right to be. And then Baby Yoda stealing the cookies, and this kid being like, what happened? What is he gonna tell people? What is he possibly gonna tell his friends? The green baby magically stole my cookies, guys.
I do like the whole cookie and the cookie follow through. I really like the moment where he just goes bleh and he throws up the cookies. And it is one of those things that I'm like, yep, that's a kid. That's a kid right there.
So now, I guess, moving on to chapter 13, The Jedi. It's our first introduction to Ahsoka Tano. And again, from not watching the Rebels, I didn't know what I was walking into, and she was very, very awesome. The opening scene of her just taking out everyone just left and right, I was like, this is great.
I was very surprised by this episode's cold open because I was expecting to have a very epic introduction to her later on in the episode. Like we just kind of build up and then we meet Ahsoka. But no, literally just straight on. Ahsoka's there, she's kicking ass, and that's it. I was very surprised by that choice. I wasn't mad at it. I was just very surprised.
I'm with you there. I was the same way, but I really like that they did it that way because I feel just so much of hype culture with especially things with Star Wars and Marvel is just really teasing who's gonna show up, and we did see this with later episodes in the season of really teasing who is it gonna be. But I really like that they went straight to the point of opening third shot. It's Ahsoka. She's kicking ass. This is her episode. Let's do this.
Yes, and it was definitely one of those things that I was very surprised by, but I was also just like, yeah, Ahsoka, and
Yeah.
just seeing those white sabers light up in that fog was really, oh, it was gorgeous. Excellent,
Mhm.
excellent cinematography in this episode all the way around.
Yeah.
Um, it was very beautiful, and the color grading was even better. I think this is one of the most unique colored episodes of the series, and I
Yeah.
loved it.
It was so well crafted. And I really loved it because I think not only was it the Ahsoka introduction episode, it was the Ahsoka introduction episode that was a whole homage to Akira Kurosawa films. So just that's such a unique way to bring this character in. So I love the fact that not only did she get such a cool intro into the Star Wars universe, or the live action universe, they did so in such a beautiful, unique way that we really, even though Star Wars, a lot of it was based off of Akira Kurosawa films, George
Mhm.
Lucas watching samurai movies and being like, yes, I want to do this.
I like
But
that. Let's do that.
it's such a cool way to homage the origins of Star Wars. Well, also because we have, even though it was based off of a lot of Akira Kurosawa's work, there wasn't a lot of homage cinematography wise in the original trilogy. So there was a little, but just to see it being so specified and just so much care being put into the camera work to make something that was really, really, really beautiful, while also being an homage to a great film director and just such a love letter to such a beloved Star Wars character.
Yeah.
I'm so happy with how Dave Filoni crafted this episode, and you
It
can tell because Dave Filoni, Ahsoka is such a character that's so near and dear to his heart that,
Yeah. Like Ahsoka is his baby, so when I saw that he directed it, it definitely made me very happy that she had the episode directed by Filoni. I wouldn't have that any other way.
No one else
Uh,
could. That would.
Yeah, it was really nice, and there are quite a few really good moments, like where she pulls out her saber behind the two goons, like this just beautiful movement of light, and it just affirmed to me that Ahsoka is a beacon of hope all the way around, even when she's kicking ass, and I loved that.
Can we also just say that Ahsoka's fight with the Magistrate is one of the best? I don't know if people would consider it a lightsaber fight because it's not both people with lightsabers, but I consider it a lightsaber fight because one person did. I think that that was one of the best lightsaber fights we've had in Star Wars, just in general. It was so beautifully crafted and so well choreographed.
The cinematography was great. There's a couple hiccups that I had with that not episode, but the fight in particular, like when she dropped her saber, she didn't try and pick it back up with the Force or anything. She just kind of let it be there. And literally only like the last 10 seconds of the fight did she hold her saber in the Ahsoka Tano fashion, which is backwards. Which I was a little disappointed by, but I thought that it was very well choreographed overall. It was very clear that it was just two very skilled warriors going at each other, and it was just, you could feel the emotion. So I have nitpicks as a fan, but as a film fan, it was very well done.
Definitely. I loved that. That was my favorite part of the episode. And I believe the magistrate is played by someone who was a student of Bruce Lee, I believe.
Yeah, his goddaughter.
And so I thought that was a cool little tidbit that I found out later on. But I'm also very intrigued to see where this Thrawn storyline goes. And, you know, obviously they alluded to the fact that it's probably going to be the main topic of the Ahsoka show.
I have theories!
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, can I just say we talked about this a little bit last episode. Thrawn is one of my favorite Star Wars villains just ever. I'm so excited to have him possibly make a live action appearance.
There's no way he's not gonna have a live action appearance if they name dropped him in this episode and she's getting her own TV series. I'm so excited. Thrawn is one of the best villains in all of Star Wars, and I'm so happy that they brought him over from Legends and made him into canon with Rebels. Like, that was some of the best things that they could have done, and now I am very much convinced that the Ahsoka episode is going to be answering the closing question of Rebels is
that was
Ezra Bridger.
That's kind of what I was because earlier I was saying we'll get to that, but that's exactly it. The fact that we in Rebels had this cliffhanger ending involving the main character and Thrawn
just getting shot into space with space whales, and nobody knows what happened.
Getting launched into space with space whales. But it ends with Sabine Wren and Ahsoka Tano being like, we're going to go look for them. And so the fact that her question was, where's Admiral Thrawn? It's such a tie-in to where we last left off with Ahsoka in her story, which again just makes Rebels a just considered canon of the Star Wars universe. Which makes me very, very, very happy. But also, we're gonna have Thrawn!
I'm like, oh my god, Thrawn is amazing, and I love him. And if no one has ventured into the world of Star Wars novels, the Thrawn series by Timothy Zahn is an excellent place to start if you just want to get thrown into the mix of the Empire. Excellent choices. There's also an Ahsoka novel that I recommend, on slightly on topic, but excellent novels, and Timothy Zahn is an excellent author, and he wrote by far my favorite Star Wars villain, above like Darth Vader and Kylo Ren and all those other ones that we're familiar with in the movies.
I'm with you there.
He's so scary, and it's great. He's scary because he's smarter than everybody else.
It's really cool to see, because that's his biggest weapon is his brain. He just, by being just cleverer than everybody else, is such a menace. So yeah, it'll be cool to see who, if it's Ahsoka who is the main adversary, which I think would make the most sense. But it'll
Yeah.
be interesting to see how he messes things up now. And I'm really interested, like Nala, as someone who hasn't seen the cartoon, like just getting all these kind of name drops. What is like kind of this set up as an expectation for you?
Well, she obviously seems very determined to find out where he is. And if we've been getting people like Moff Gideon, who is pretty bad, just to see, and pretty smart as well, because Giancarlo Esposito plays the best smart villainous characters. You know, she's very determined to find him, and seeing how badass she already is, I'm very excited to see where they take it in the show. Another part of this episode that has got people buzzing is we finally get to know what the child's name is, which is Grogu.
There's a reason why I still call him Baby Yoda, and it's because, first of all, they announced his name far too late in the series for it to change now. He's just the child, and forever will be the child.
I'm kind of in the minority where I liked it. I like it a lot.
It sounded far too similar to Goku from Dragon Ball Z for me to really like it.
That's valid. It would be funny if they did name Baby Yoda Goku, though. Can you imagine if that had been the reveal? They just started calling him Goku.
Imagine if he started screaming like Goku every time he used the Force.
So for me, it was a little underwhelming because I was like, that doesn't sound very Star Warsy to me, but okay. But so to me, he's still the child because it took too long for them to announce it, and then I wasn't like, yeah, that's a good Star Wars name.
Star Wars names are either like something super intricate and amazing, or it's like Ted Rocket. That's me. I'm Spaceman.
Yeah. There's some things that the Star Wars names can vary, but I also think it definitely builds the world a little bit more because there are some places that you get those earthly names, I suppose, and other places in the universe that you have really wacky names, and it can vary person to person. And I think that like it's a very interesting mix and kind of builds the world of like, here's something that might be similar to what we know here on Earth, and here are some things that are very different than what we know here on Earth.
So, after helping Ahsoka overthrow the magistrate, the Mandalorian tries to get Grogu to stay with her, but she says that he can't, or she cannot help him. And he had to take Grogu to another planet.
Which makes sense because Ahsoka technically isn't a Jedi. She left the Order?
Yeah, she hasn't been a Jedi for a very long time.
Yeah, so that makes sense to me that she's like, I can't train to be a Jedi because I'm not a Jedi.
Which was really wacky to me that they named that episode The Jedi. Just a side note on that. I was like, it popped up and I was like, she's not a Jedi!
So, in the next episode, The Tragedy, which was a very tragic episode, Mandad takes his kid to another planet, where he puts him on a seeing stone, and Baby Yoda just kind of trances out. And this like light beam shines up that the Mandalorian can't get through. And having seen another ship land, he goes to investigate and finds the long-awaited reveal of the actual Boba Fett, to whom he returns, who was searching for his armor and was following Mando around. But he returns Boba Fett's armor and finds out that Fennec Shard, played by Ming-Na Wen, who has been on Disney's roster quite a few times as the voice of Mulan, and in her character in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and now in Star Wars, which she does an amazing job. I'm glad she was, has come back, because I was like, no, I want to see more of her character. So I like that they're bringing back these characters from the first season.
Yeah, I remember when she popped up last season and I was so excited. I was like, "Yeah, she's in Star Wars now." And then she promptly died and I was like, "Well, I guess that was nice while it lived." And then she came back and I was like, "What?" It was great. That whole episode was great. That whole episode was full of like so many moments where I'm just like, "Yes!" or "What?" or "No." There's like a
Mhm.
lot of screaming at the television, to the point where my roommate actually texted me from her D&D downstairs and was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yes, it's just Star Wars." But it was one of those that I was just like very excited for, and Boba Fett was one of those things that so I was very excited when they announced that they were going to be doing a Boba Fett movie, and everyone made fun of me for it for some reason, but I was like, no, Boba Fett is the one that we need to explore because he was hardly in the original trilogy, and we only saw him as a kid in Attack of the Clones. We saw him in Clone Wars, but still as a kid, but we got to see him like train up to be a bounty hunter and whatnot. And I'm just like, we need more Boba Fett because Boba Fett is a very interesting and iconic character that we truly have not seen a lot of. Um, and so it was very nice that they were just like, "Oh yeah, okay, so we're bringing back the actor who played Jango Fett because that makes sense." Um, and he kicked ass the whole episode. Like I was literally so excited. Like he was crushing stormtrooper helmets, like it was nothing, and it was just so beautiful to watch. And I remember when I first saw the slave one come up, I was like, Boba Fett, Boba Fett, Boba Fett, Boba Fett. It was so awesome. Like he's one of the coolest characters in Star Wars and very much on why like the Mandalorian myth kind of like grew and became this really big bubble until people started developing it more. Um and it was very cool to see him come back into the show and because he was the original inspiration for the Mandalorians as a whole as a general thing. It was a very excellent reintroduction to this character between Slave One, him like being like, "Yo, that armor, it's mine." And you know, just being an overall badass with crushing stormtrooper helmets. Like it was so nice and awesome.
But the episode was called The Tragedy, and in fact, it was because they managed to, one, destroy the Razor Crest. So sad. After all his hard work trying to get that repaired,
That was
it
so
just ends up getting blown to smithereens. So sad.
I was like, well, okay, that's gonna put a kink in the rest of the show.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I keep seeing memes where like people have like Lego piles and it's labeled that this is the new Razor Crest. It's the Lego piles, and it breaks my heart every time.
I thought, well, on the topic of another ship getting destroyed, the stormtrooper ships that Boba Fett hit were so funny because he was like, I was aiming for the other one. It really just kind of brings more to his character.
I really love that how they developed his character as just kind of this. They made him such like not just a badass, but just a brutal, savagely fighting badass. And yeah, I think they brought a lot of really good characterization to him that just is a really nice welcome back to him as a character.
Very much so. And like as a point to someone who has seen the Clone Wars, he was trained by another bounty hunter named Ara Singh, and she was very much into like long ranged weapons as well as hand-to-hand combat. And you could definitely see that the choreographer knew that.
Overall, it's like this is the part of the season that it started ramping up again in terms of like action and story wise.
Stakes, lots of
And yeah,
stakes.
very.
Mhm.
Oh, I didn't expect them to be separated. I was expecting them to somehow. I mean, I wasn't, with an episode title like The Tragedy, you should expect something tragic to happen, which it did. We got introduced to the Dark Troopers that I'm like, that's one of the things I wondered about the Empire. I'm like, they don't really use that many droids in like positions of attack. So
Yeah, the only in the prequels did the Separatists really have that, but they definitely had moved away from that in the original trilogy. And to see the Dark Troopers evolve from what we saw in Rogue One to being fully robotic was a very interesting change. And I thought it was it worked very well, even considering what they did in the campaign of Battlefront 2, with Operation Cinder. I think it was definitely one of those things that it felt like a natural progression, and I was very excited to see that.
speaking of Cinder, we'll go on to chapter 15, The Believer. This episode has me conflicted only because I'm not sure how I feel about Bill Burr as an actor. But I did like his character and his whole redemption. He basically, after being duped by Mando in season 1 and getting arrested, he is now brought back because of his previous Empire ties to help infiltrate a base and get the coordinates for Moff Gideon's ship to get Baby Yoda back.
Mhm.
They infiltrate. It's a classic infiltration story. They outrun some pirates, and then in order to get the coordinates, and we got to see some good old awkward Pedro Pascal, which was
I love
for
him.
me the highlight of the episode because
Mhm.
with
his
the mask,
acting was so beautiful with that.
Yeah.
It was great.
Mhm. I love his character dichotomy from I'm super badass when no one can, look me in the eye. But I'm very shy and awkward without my helmet. Please be kind.
It was also very interesting because when he was talking to somebody, he would face them entirely head on, like his whole body would just face the person that he was talking to. And it was very clear that they were doing that intentionally because he was facing the Imperial officer straight on, and the Imperial officer was kind of like looking at him from the side, while his shoulders were against the chair. And it's something that you would only notice for a little bit, but like it's something that was very intentional because if you've been wearing a helmet your whole life, you have to face somebody to look at them, to talk to them. You have to
Mhm.
face them with your whole body, and he was doing that even without the helmet on, and it was very excellent acting. I liked that very much. And Pedro Pascal was pitched this role specifically because they wanted him. He didn't audition for it. And I think that honestly, I can't think of a better choice to play him, because he is so thoughtful about his body choices and his body language, which makes
Mhm.
him work for just, acting in a suit the whole time with a helmet.
Yeah. And one really other aspect I really think is interesting about him taking his helmet off is just how vulnerable that makes him as a character. Kind of going off of what you were saying, he's been wearing this helmet for like since he was a child and has kind of had this idea that has been challenged recently that as a true Mandalorian, you never take off your helmet in front of anybody, no matter what. So it was really cool seeing him kind of go against that idea for this kid, but also his willingness to put himself in such a vulnerable position for to protect Grogu, to protect the child. I think again, it really speaks to the volume of just how much empathy he has as a character, and just he's a big old softy, and I think that's awesome. And because you don't get that in action protagonists a lot.
No, most of them are very like, "Huh, I'm a man," and not there's not a whole lot of empathy or like kindness attached to them a lot of the time, which I think we kind of saw that from the beginning with Mando when he was like, I'm not going to kill this kid. I'm not going to just hand this kid over. Like, it's a kid. And to see him become even more vulnerable because of this child, and to make that what feels like the ultimate sacrifice to him to take his helmet off. It was really a special moment because it wasn't in front of the kid yet. It was in service of the child, and I think that was really special.
I
Uh,
liked how, as you said, Faith, his ideals have been recently challenged, especially with meeting Bo-Katan, who goes, helmetless and is like, oh yeah, those are old ideals, like get with the times. And now he's realizing that maybe it's worth, you have to adapt to whatever situation you're in. As a Mandalorian, like that's something you should do to be able to handle every situation that is thrown at you. So I think he's learning that it's okay to, break the rules sometimes. And yeah, it does put him in a very vulnerable position. But yeah, seeing how far he was willing to go for Grogu, yeah, did show how much he's grown and how much he cares about him. And I really appreciate the lengths that he's able to go with emoting in both without the helmet and with the helmet. I appreciate actors who will go that deep in character. To go to a kind of similar but different character, Judge Dredd. I love that Carl Urban was also like very adamant about acting with the helmet on, because it is possible to have a fully full-fleshed character without really seeing much of your face. But it's always awesome to see Pedro Pascal and his. Although it does beg, it does bear the question: why bother maintaining a mustache if you're gonna be
I
keeping
do
a
find
helmet
that
on?
detail hilarious. I was thinking about that the other day because that means he grooms that mustache. He grooms his face to have that specific mustache. For someone who doesn't wear or who never takes his helmet off, I think that's such an interesting little character detail because he's allowed to take it off in private. So I do think that was intentional. I think the fact that he has kind of a groomed face and kind of does take care of himself in that way. It means he does kind of have some sense of identity of himself outside of the helmet.
I think he just realized that he looks like Pedro Pascal, and he's like, I'm gonna take this every opportunity I can now to maybe show that off.
It's just like, God, I got to double down on this.
I mean, I'm not complaining.
I'm not either. So I mean that I guess we'll finish up some stuff about this episode. I did like how Bill Burr's character, I forgot his name.
Mayfield.
Oh yeah, Mayfield. From Boston, the space Boston.
He really grew on me as a character. Because like when his first appearance in Mayfield's first appearance, I was like, oh, this guy, he's fine. But he really jumped to, I think, one of my favorite characters in the show. I thought this was such a cool aspect to him. I love that he's so personally tied to Operation Cinder. I really loved hearing his kind of speech about how it wasn't heroic for all the people that you sacrificed at the end of this. Like we were fighting for this cause, and the fact that you just killed us. I thought that was such a powerful moment, and I didn't know Bill Burr could deliver that, and he did, which is a big surprise for me. Go Bill Burr! Also, I think it's hilarious that Bill Burr was well known as a comedian for being the I hate Star Wars guy is such an important part in a big Star Wars show now.
I didn't
I
know
love
that.
he is. He's like notorious for just like rightfully making fun of Star Wars and how ridiculous it can be. It's very funny actually. But there's actually a really good interview where he was talking about being brought in for the Mandalorian, and he's like, "Yeah, sure, whatever. It's funny, haha. I'm in Star Wars," and then getting there and being like, "Oh no, oh, this is actually really good."
Comedy for poking holes at Star Wars has always been funny because no one hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans sometimes.
It's true. Bill Burr is not a Star Wars fan. Let's when
Yeah,
you guys watch
which is even more funny because like I as a Star Wars fan, I can even appreciate the fact that Star Wars has issues. Star Wars has always had issues. But I think it's interesting that they decided to cast him in the Mandalorian because I know that they spent a lot of time trying to find directors for Mandalorian episodes that truly cared about the Mandalorian and telling Star Wars stories. It was a really big deal. They talked about it at Star Wars Celebration in 2019. They were like, yeah, everyone that we've hired to write these episodes, to be behind the camera for these episodes, to direct these episodes. They're all Star Wars fans because we wanted there to be as much love for this franchise and this series as we had. So I find it very interesting that they decided to hire someone who is blatantly against Star Wars.
I think it was purely Jon Favreau being like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna make this notorious anti-Star Wars into a Star Wars fan. Oh, I'm gonna fix this. He will see the light.
Yes. I think he has seen the light now, which is pretty nice. But like, I don't know, his character was something that I was not anticipating on ever seeing again, but I was pleasantly surprised when he'd come back. But like, I was very concerned in this episode that like it was Baby Yoda was still not back, and we spent an entire episode just looking for coordinates. And I was like, that's going to be a lot of things that you have to shove into the final episode.
That aired yesterday. Chapter 16, The Rescue. Faith, if you want to take it away on what happened.
Yeah, so a lot happened this episode. It was one of the longest episodes of the seasons, and it totally delivered. It was a wild ride from the beginning to end. So just a little bit of a recap of what happened. It started off with our cold open. We see the Imperial shuttle disabled by Boba Fett on his ship, and Mandalorian and Cara Dune interact with the pilots and capture one Dr. Pershing.
The biggest thing that I remembered with that was when one of the pilots was kind of given a big long speech about like, we destroyed Mandalore, we destroyed Alderaan, you're all scum, basically. Just like, that's a really good way in a lot of words to ask to be shot in the head. So that was kind of like the first intro that I had of like, so were you dealing with a bunch of dummies or just people who thought maybe I'm gonna die anyway, so might as well tell them to that I hate their guts for no good reason.
One interesting thing I do think was really interesting about that moment is finding out what the rebel tattoo on Cara's face means. That it is a teardrop for remembrance of Alderaan, and that it is something that people who are survivors of Alderaan have gotten to kind of memorialize that, which I think is super punk rock. I love that detail. I think that is such like it really, again, it gave her a lot of depth in just like that kind of small moment and knowing what that represents and what that meant to her.
And I know that a lot of people had questions about why, but a lot of people chalked it up to, while she was a part of the rebellion and, you know, it's probably just a personal choice, but to find out that it was in fact not just a personal choice, but kind of like a movement. Cara Dune may not be my favorite this season, but it was one of those moments that I definitely felt for her. I haven't had a lot of emotion for her this season, but I felt for her character in that moment a lot.
And I also like how no nonsense she was. She wasn't going to like, she was just gonna kill him. Shot to the head.
No ifs, ands, or buts, you did.
Yeah, it was, which I guess also this little arc is the season for Mando's side characters getting to shoot their Empire demons. All right, so after that, we immediately jump to the gang enlisting the help of Bo-Katan and Koska Reeves in return of and make a deal with Bo-Katan. We see Bo-Katan and Reska and Boba kind of have a little bit of an antagonist moment. We see how they kind of view each other. We see that Bo-Katan doesn't view Boba as a true Mandalorian. We see how Boba views Bo-Katan as this kind of stuck-up heiress. I thought that was just, it was so interesting to see these characters interact in that way and to kind of see that, okay, they're not necessarily on good terms, that they're not just, we're Mandalorians, so we're in this together. Because that's not how Mandalorians are. They've never been like that. And I'm really...
This is not the way.
That's not the way. Friendship? What? That's not the way.
You need help? Whatever. Deal with it on your own. I thought it was really interesting I was a little it was kind of weird for me because I know that Bo-Katan is not a stuck-up heiress, and so from my like fan perspective, I was just like, how dare you? So I was a little upsetty spaghetti with Boba Fett for like a hot second there, but I was like, yeah, no, I guess that kind of makes sense because she is from a royal family, even though like she never exactly wanted to be.
Yeah, but also the way she treats him, she doesn't treat him like a again, she doesn't treat him like a Mandalorian. She doesn't show him immediately doesn't show him any respect. Uh
And I think for me, it felt justified. Like the clones turned on her. Um, and so while she's heard that voice 100 times, she sees Boba Fett as just like a clone who survived and not actually someone who was raised different than everybody else. She just sees him as another clone, and that's it.
the line that I've heard that voice a million times before. I know exactly what you are. I thought that was so clever. That was such a nice detail.
I really liked that interaction that they had. As someone who again has not seen the show, I didn't know anything about, you know, her past and her experiences with clones. So that just gives me more of an appreciation for her hostility. I hope, I mean, it's not touched upon by the end of the episode because Boba kind of leaves a little bit and then comes back. But hopefully that relationship is mended. It'll be, I mean, I'm interested to know where, you know, their animosity goes.
It would definitely be an interesting question to explore is if there will be growth between some of these characters in the future.
All right. And then after that, we jump into a lot of action. We see our group. They have a plan. They use the captured shuttle to get close enough to crash land onto the cruiser with Fett pretending to attack them. Uh, Fett immediately dips after they crash for reasons. And in the meantime, we see Bo-Katan, Koska, Fennec, and Dune fight through a bunch of stormtroopers to get to the bridge of the ship, while the Mandalorian, he sneaks onto the ship and has his encounter with dun 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 the Dark Troopers, where he manages to send all but one into an airlock into space and defeats barely defeats the other one with his Beskar spear.
That whole fight sequence was something to behold. Let me say that right now. I was impressed by a lot of the close-up shots of the trooper. It was very, very beautifully done. I really loved how shiny they looked and pristine. And it was just a really interesting way to make them feel that much more intimidating. I also really loved the score. The score was something amazing. It was
Yes.
I literally turned up the TV because I was like, oh, that score though. Like it just
An absolute banger.
Mm-hmm.
I could listen to that on repeat. I felt it in my soul, and it was very befitting for we have these troopers that are literally not people, they're robots, and to reflect that in the score in such an epic way and an intimidating way was a really, really nice choice.
I almost didn't believe what I was hearing because I was like, this is not dubstep right now in this Star Wars. What's happening?
It
But then I
doesn't feel
realized that,
very
you know,
Star Warsy.
it doesn't, but it still works the same way the whole, honestly, score and soundtrack of The Mandalorian just works because
Mm-hmm.
it has this like Western vibe. You have this guitar that you really never hear in this like space epic, but that's the thing. It's like Amanda's like a space Western, but
Oh, definitely. It's a spaghetti
also
Western in
bringing
space.
in, yeah, but also bringing in, you know, dubstep in kind of a seamless way. I truly loved it, and I did love how he had his one epic fight. He did get his butt handed to him, but he eventually came out on top, and then was like, "I'm not dealing with any more of this," and just airlocks the other droids out. I thought that was
Yeah.
hilarious and very, very in character.
I
Um,
wouldn't want to deal with them too.
And
but
it
also
really,
they're intimidating with the fact that they were like punching the window while he was fighting. It really makes you like, it really reminds you that they are in fact just programmed for one thing and they will not stop at any cost, and that's terrifying.
Very
They're very
terrifying.
Terminator-esque.
I really think that, or I think they did a really good job in that moment establishing just how much of a threat these things are. Because we've seen Mando kick butt this entire season, and to see him struggle so much with just one of these things, it really just made the threat that much more real.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. It was a very good way to introduce them as just straight up scary from the get-go. There was no like lead into it for that much. It was just like, okay, these guys are scary. We should probably run now.
I was just gonna say, I love how you did get that one big fight, and then he was they get shot through the airlock, and you're like, all right, that's the end of that. We got the one fight, that's cool. And then they come back, and you're like, oh wait, they weren't. These are not stormtroopers who are gonna die in space. These are droids. They can't.
Yeah, I
Yikes.
remember it got to that point, and I was on the edge of my seat, like, oh God, how are they gonna handle this?
Yeah, it was very nice.
Moving on, we then went into a very tense interaction between Moff Gideon and Mando. And then they fought with the dark saber and the Beskar spear.
I had that. Okay, so this particular scene, um, it was very well done in terms of like we had been building up for about a season at this point, because it was about a season ago that Moff Gideon was even introduced. So we've been kind of building up for it for an entire season, and it was one of those things that I guess I had a little bit more expectations for, in terms of like, I don't know how long Moff Gideon has had the Darksaber, but you figured he would have like practiced with it, but he definitely he felt like he didn't quite know what he was doing with the Darksaber, except it was this intimidating weapon and didn't quite know its capabilities. Um and so that was very interesting, but it was still very intense regardless, because a lot had to do with the cinematography and whatnot, but they also built it up with the score and the story had been building to this point. And he, like, Moff Gideon literally took the Darksaber to Baby Yoda and was about ready to slice him in half if Mando didn't cooperate, which, would be on par for what the Darksaber has been used for, but I would not have been a happy camper. So it was very interesting. And I honestly think that this was my favorite fight sequence in this episode. And the reason why I say that is because it is by far the most emotionally hinged fight sequence in this episode. There's a lot of emotions riding on this one fight sequence, even if they're not very good at fighting each other.
I just want to say, I think Beskar is some of the coolest stuff. I like that
Mhm.
it's basically impossible to cut through. It's very, very vibranium feeling. I'm always a fan of, metals that can withstand anything. So that, yeah, I like that it heated up, but even the fact that it did heat up with the Darksaber, it didn't break. And just the fact that it was very, I didn't know the consequence of the fight. I thought it was just a fight for Baby Yoda's sake, but turns out maybe this was part of Moff's plan, to be disarmed and have the saber taken from him, because when he's spared by Mando, he's kind of surprised but kind of not. It kind of
Mhm.
seems like he was expecting this to happen, because now this means that there's inner conflict with different Mandalorians.
So I do have some questions. Or there are some things that I am and to be fair, just it's a question that I have in terms of just kind of the continuity of things. It's been a hot minute since I've seen Rebels. It's been about a year. So the last time we saw the Darksaber, it was owned before it was Bo-Katan. Its owner was Sabine Wren,
Hmm.
who I'm pretty. She gave it to Bo-Katan, right?
So they had a really long, drawn out battle before Sabine was like, I don't need this responsibility. I don't want this responsibility. So there still was a fight. There's still like they were talking about like it's the story, it's the myth of the story. There's still like that myth of the story between Sabine and Bo-Katan. It was handed over, but it was after a very emotional fight that it was handed over.
Okay, I couldn't remember if they fought or not. But I do remember just being like Sabine being like, "Yes, you are the rightful owner of this. You've always been the rightful owner of this," and her being like, "Yes, thank you. I will carry it in my sister's memory." Uh, Also, like a month ago, she was making fun of him for not taking his helmet off, and now she's not going to take the dark saber.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting though. I think it's really interesting that like before she had this moment of like, no, that's the your way is not the right way of being a Mandalorian. It's kind of it's in your heart. It's not that. And now that she's really flawed, and I think it's a really just kind of interesting to see this kind of back and forth between this is what you have to do, no, this is what you have to do between the two of them.
Yeah, it's also very much she definitely sees it. I can compare her to Prince Zuko a lot, where she cares a lot about the whole idea of her honor being like basically like a currency is what
Hmm.
honor is. And so what she sees as honorable can definitely change sometimes. She can flow very swiftly between what we would consider like an anti-hero or a villain to being just a straight up hero because she's more concerned with honor than anything else in the world sometimes.
And it's just really interesting, and it's really cool to see those aspects of her characters brought out. But I think let's talk about the big part, the big reveal of this episode. So the droids that Mando sent into space, they're droids. They're fine. It's space. They can breathe. So they get back onto the ship, and after seeing how much trouble they had with the first just one droid, the fact that now there's an army after them, they all prepare to battle and probably die to these things, when then a mysterious X-wing or a mysterious starfighter comes in, and a mysterious figure comes out and starts slaughtering these droids, and it's Luke Skywalker.
It was such a beautiful time watching him just go to town on all those droids. It's funny thinking that he was, walking out with his badass cloak, very Darth Vader like, like father like son, with his extraness, and just, slicing up all these droids, and just R2 following behind.
It's the mandatory R2 cameo. You cannot have Star Wars, any Star Wars,
But
without
like,
an R2.
I just think it's funny because you don't see him in the footage, the security footage, but he does show up. So it's like
He's just a little
he was,
late.
yeah, he was just chilling in the background, making sure the coast is clear, and then just riding through the mess of bodies of his own droid people.
So Luke showing up was actually spoiled for me
Oh
yesterday
no!
morning, which was really disappointing.
Oh,
So that was fun. But to be fair, I've had the majority of some portion of these episodes spoiled for me before I got to see the episode, but this was definitely one of those that I really wish that it hadn't been spoiled for me. Because specifically what was spoiled was Mark Hamill's CGI'd face. So,
I, I was gonna mention that
so
because
I was like,
I was wondering what they were going to do with it. I was like, you've seen all these fan castings of people being like, Sebastian Stan should play a young Luke Skywalker because he actually looks a lot like Mark Hamill. And I was like, oh, he's in with Marvel, he's in with Disney, like they can totally call him up for a favor. but they decided to go CGI face with it. But to their credit, it looked better than the dirty they did Carrie on Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the technology has definitely advanced since then. I mean, if you look at Sam Jackson in Captain Marvel, it's nearly flawless.
Yeah, but also looking at like Michael Douglas and Ant-Man, that was, made a few years prior to Rogue One. I was really impressed with the way they did that.
There's a lot of times that I think it definitely works, and other times where I think it doesn't necessarily work. Honestly, I think Carrie's was just fine. I remember Carrie Fisher even saying that she was really excited about. She's like, "Hey, that's me." It was Tarkin's was more of where I was like, "Ooh, I don't know about that."
And I think the important thing to remember with the Rogue One ones is that they didn't have the original actors for Tarkin or Leia, and that they had different people who they just put Carrie's. Those were kind of a little bit. Those were almost more deep fakes than anything else.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Which has been really interesting because a lot of people have been saying they should have deep faked it, but that's what they did for Rogue One, and no one really seemed to like it then.
Yeah, Rogue One definitely had some issues with it, but I enjoyed it overall.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the CGI was passable for The Mandalorian. It is definitely the most expensive CGI that you can possibly do, so I was very surprised that they decided to do that in a TV show and not use CG for Ahsoka's montrals to give him the right way.
That's accurate.
So I wasn't really sure, but like Luke was one of those things that I was very excited that he was there. It made sense, like, because he is trying to build up the new order again. And having Baby Yoda come and join makes sense. I'm really hoping that Kylo Ren is not his murderer in the future. But
I don't think that's the case because that would be so disappointing for especially Baby Yoda that they've set him up as important just to have him be like, oh yeah, he was slaughtered by some punk kid.
yeah, so I'm very there's a lot of questions that I have. But it's also when Luke shows up, it's one of those things that, like, I was a little disappointed that it was Luke. Even though it works, I was a little disappointed it was Luke. And the reason why is because uh we've been through the Skywalker saga quite a few times. We know this story. There's just so many other characters out there and so many new characters to explore. I would have been interested to seeing, like, it maybe be Ezra Bridger or Cal Kestis. Like,
Yeah.
those are some ones that I would be like, okay, these are some characters that we haven't explored, and we definitely haven't explored in live action before. But we've already seen Luke. It makes sense, but I'm like, okay, it's Luke Skywalker. We've seen Luke Skywalker, so I'm not really sure. But then, like, on top of that, he's taken Baby Yoda to the temple, and I'm like, there's no way that they're gonna pay to do the CGI on Mark Hamill for Baby Yoda to be a major part of the next season if he's training with Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Because there's no way that they can have that in the budget.
And kind of when it comes to Luke too, and all those characters with how they're establishing the Disney is gonna have to recast all three of them sooner or later. They can't stick, like, the CGI works, but they can't. That's not viable. That's so much more expensive than just hiring new blood, which it's something that happens in all media, and Disney's been really reluctant to do it, which I kind of get because God, whoever they cast as Luke Skywalker, whether it's Sebastian Stan or whoever, they're going to have some shoes to fill.
I mean, if we take a look at what happened with the Solo movie, people were up in arms, and I honestly think that he did a really good job. And it was, even though he may not look like Harrison Ford, he acted the part well, and I was very impressed by that.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's not the original person, people aren't going to be happy.
Yeah.
And between Solo's not so great success in terms of box office, it's one of those things that, like, it made its money back, but it didn't do as well as they'd hoped. But honestly, it's no one's going to be happy all the time, even though I think that Eckenridge did a really good job. It's not going to be for everybody. Even though it was for me, it's not going to be for the next Star Wars fan. So I understand why they brought back Mark Hamill, but I think after Solo, they kind of are going to be a lot more reluctant about recasting, even if it is a fan casting like Sebastian Stan.
Yeah. Although there is one thing with the introduction of Luke into this that makes it bittersweet, and that's that Baby Yoda left with Luke. They had their goodbye. Baby Yoda needed Mando's permission to go with the new Jedi Master. Mando took his helmet off for him.
Yes.
Everybody cried. What did we think of that? What did we think of that direction?
Loved it. I've been a fan of the theories of Baby Yoda being both a Jedi and Mandalorian, kind of like a hybrid. So I'm intrigued to see where they go with it. Obviously, I like that they needed his permission because they don't want to do something that would, go against this person they care about. And that's very heartwarming. It also shows how far they've come in their relationship, where they both know what's best for moving forward, and they just want to make sure that Baby Yoda wants to make sure that Mando's fine, and Mando wants to make sure that Baby Yoda's in good hands. So, and I think I'm very intrigued to see where they go moving forward, because it's very much the Baby Yoda show.
Yes.
So is it going to continue? Are we going to see more of Luke? Is the Acolyte show going to be about this? Like, I'm intrigued to see where it goes, and I guess that can segue to the post-credit scene.
Yes, we had a awesome end credit scene at the very end, because end credit scenes are now in TV shows now, I guess. But it was with Boba and Fennec returning to Tatooine, breaking into the huts and taking over the place, and it was awesome. I want to see where that goes. I don't know what the tales of Boba Fett is going to be, but
I'm gonna just call him Boba.
I think so.
I think it was very badass that he just kind of sat there and he's just like, "Yep, this is mine now." There's just a whole lot of questions. This finale in particular is a very interesting one because it doesn't show us where we're going next. The ending of last season just wrapped up really nicely. They did what they needed to do, and then Moff Gideon pops out of a TIE fighter with the Darksaber, and that's the end. It sets up the next season with a question, but it still resolves this season. And this season, it has a little bit of resolution, but it definitely feels like it's just setting up a bunch of different storylines, but it doesn't set up the next storyline for Mandalorian very well. I think it would be interesting to see if they go back to take Mandalore, and that's what happens. I'm very interested in Mando versus Bo-Katan, but they didn't set that up very well. So it's something that I'm very hopeful that we do get to see quite a bit of, but it wasn't a nice setup, basically, because there's too many other things going on of other things they wanted to set up for other shows and other ideas.
True. I think this was very much like a setup season for. They're like, oh, we're gonna announce all of our Star Wars shows in the middle of this Mandalorian season, and it's going to tie in. We're gonna write these characters into this show to kind of segue them into their own.
So, even though we didn't get a lot to work with, what are some of our predictions for next season, or what's going to happen?
Bo-Katan is gonna kick Mando's ass.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued to see where they go with that. Especially with the fact that the Darksaber is, the symbol of a Mandalorian Jedi hybrid thing, like I was talking about, and how Din Djarin views the Jedi, and now he is the rightful wielder of the Darksaber, despite him not wanting to be. It's very reminiscent of Jon Snow in the later seasons of Game of Thrones, where he's like, I don't want it.
Yeah,
I don't want the
definitely.
throne. So I'm intrigued to see, because he's a foundling too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, didn't.
So yeah, he's not from Mandalore, right?
No.
So that's very interesting, because now he has a claim to the throne, and he's like, okay, how am I gonna, like, that's some more conflict, both with Bo-Katan and internally.
There's a lot of interesting things that could happen. I don't think he wants it, and I don't think he's gonna keep it. But if she won't take it, I'm not entirely sure what exactly will happen. But I'm very confident that Bo-Katan will try and kick his butt to get it back, because she's on a mission, and when Bo-Katan's on a mission, she doesn't really give that up.
Mhm.
It would be interesting to see if this is still a part of them cloning the Emperor 100 times, which leads into the sequel trilogy, because they already confirmed that all of them are clones, including the Emperor himself in the end of The Rise of Skywalker is in fact a clone. It's not the OG Emperor Palpatine. So it's going to be interesting to see if that's what they're trying to tie into. There's a lot of fan theories that you could come up with, but as we all know in Star Wars, fan theories can just lead you to great disappointment, because fan theories don't usually work out.
Right.
I think that there's going to be a lot of conflict, because since he technically is a cult member with the children of Mandalore, or whatever they're called, it'll be interesting, because that's the side he is. It'll be interesting to see if he meets up with the Armorer again, and some of the people from where he grew up, the Children of the Watch. That's what it is. And it'll be interesting to see if, because I think that's going to be a conflict. I don't think Bo-Katan and the Armorer are going to be friends, and I don't think they're going to have the same agenda. And I think Mando is going to get right in the middle of it, unintentionally. He wants nothing to do with it. I think they're going to make him pick a side, and especially as being the one with the Darksaber, whoever he picks is going to have massive consequences.
The main thing that I feel like I know will happen is that Bo-Katan is going to get that Darksaber back, and she's going to do it in the way that she feels is the most honorable, and that will probably include kicking his butt.
It'll be really interesting to see if she continues to stay an ally, or if she turns into an antagonist.
Yeah, it wouldn't be
Personally-
the first times that Bo-Katan would do that.
That is true. I think if seeing her become I would love to see her as like a main antagonist in this show, because we've seen her do that before, and she's always really interesting when she's in those situations. So it would be really cool to see, with so much at stake, her kind of go that route.
With that, you can write us at sirensdenpodcast@gmail.com if you have a topic we should look at. You can like and comment on our Facebook page, and follow us on wherever you get podcasts.
And we'd like to once again give a very special thank you to our wonderful guest, PersonifyCosplay. It's always a pleasure to talk Star Wars.
It's always a pleasure to talk Star Wars with you as well. Like, it is so much fun talking Star Wars with true Star Wars nerds.
Is there anything that you want to tell people?
So hi, I'm Personify. You can find me on the majority of social medias, but I'm most active on Instagram and Twitch, so feel free to follow me on those. You can also just talk Star Wars with me if you want to. My inbox is always open to talk Star Wars, so get nerdy.
Love it.
I'm Personify Cosplay on literally everything. My handle does not change.
Sweet!
Thank you to our awesome producer, Ty.
Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to catch us next time, and
Bye!
bye!